Hiya, welcome to Craftwerk. I'm Ruthie and today you're going to have to excuse me a little bit because I am very jittery after hearing my name, hearing Craftwerk being mentioned on the Brew podcast. Oh my god, I'm such a big fan of that podcast. It is one of my absolute favourites and I listen to a lot of podcasts and I think Gabby and Megan are just great. I've always loved them and their vlogs and blogs and Instagrams and stuff. So yeah, totally amazed that they even watch. So hi Gabby and Megan, thank you again. You're so sweet. You really made my day, my week, my month, my year. Anyway, that's not just what this video is about, don't worry. But if you haven't checked out that podcast, Brew, you absolutely must. It's brilliant, even if you don't listen to podcasts. So recently I have also noticed a lot of my friends and acquaintances and just generally people that I know, when I see them out and about, they're telling me that they're watching my vlogs or that they've seen that I'm doing the vlogs at least. And they're asking me a lot more now about my sewing, and about how to get into sewing, a lot of them. So I've been giving them a lot of practical tips, and last week I told you about my favourite sewing books, including DIY Couture, which is what I always tell people to get when they're thinking about starting to sew. But then I thought, were there any sort of wider tips that I could give, thinking particularly about what I wish I could say to myself when I was a beginner sewist, sort of the things that I wish I knew then. I compiled a list. There were about 50 points, but I have narrowed it down to just 5. So I'll probably talk about some of the other ones in later videos and try and theme them. These are my sort of like top 5 main things to think about and tips that I really wish that I knew, or I wish I'd listened to when I was just starting out with my sewing. So tip number 1 is probably the most important. It is, you may never reach perfection, but that's okay. That's great. Perfect is not what we're striving for when we're making a handmade wardrobe. And that's the first thing to remember, especially as a beginner. I think I kind of thought that one day I would be making loads of clothes that are perfect, but actually I don't think a single one of my garments doesn't have a tiny little nick here or a pucker there. Or even when I think I'm doing it all perfectly, I'll do something silly. But in some ways that is what makes it perfect, because that mistake has taught me something. So it's kind of like reimagining perfection. Number 2 is another big one. It's take your time. Do not make that thing for tonight. You don't have time and you will regret it. And obviously that's not a good idea for a number of reasons. It's stressful and this is a hobby, and it's not worth stressing out about. I do have other clothes. Pretty much anything I'm ever gonna do, I have the clothes for it. So let's just take a step back and find an outfit from those clothes. It often doesn't work out anyway, and then I end up not being able to wear that thing anyway, and still having to go through my wardrobe, but having a lot less time to do so, being already late, in my undies, with no makeup on yet, just feeling like, damn, I wasted a day and I've stressed myself out. And kind of in the same vein, giving myself the time to find the right things for the project as well, like the right fabric, the right notions. So for example, I once made a pair of trousers that I absolutely loved, still love, I've kept them, but I need to work out how I can fix this issue with them. I didn't have a jeans button or any suitable buttons. So I used a popper, metal, so it looks nice, until it undoes every 2 minutes. It just pop, undone, trousers undone, not a good look. Number 3 is think carefully about your personal style, or at least try to. Now, don't get me wrong, I've only recently started to really incorporate my personal style into my sewing. I've only recently spent a lot of time working out what my personal style is, rather than just going by like, I like it, therefore it's my style. And obviously it's been such a huge part of my development to make lots of things that now don't reflect my style. But at the same time, I do wish I could tell my younger self, like, step away from the florals. You don't like them, they don't suit you, they look beautiful on other people, they look beautiful on the roll, they look beautiful on Lisa Comfort. They're not your style. Find your own style, and it's not florals. And the other one is, like, do not even attempt that vintage dress pattern. You will not look good in it. You will not feel right wearing it. You'll never wear it, and it'll take a lot of time to make and a lot of nice pretty fabric, and yeah, you'll regret it. It's not worth it. Number 4 is kind of a practical one. It's finish your seams properly. I'm not saying you need an overlocker. A zigzag stitch will do, but pinking shears on a fabric that frays very easily, like a rayon or a crepe or something, they're not going to do the job. You need to finish them properly, even if that means doing French seams or using bias binding on the seams. If it's a really like easily fraying fabric, don't cut the corners there, because I once had a skirt that just completely unraveled in the washing machine basically. And that it was just one big knot of threads, and it wasn't really salvageable, and it was quite, I would probably wear that skirt now, so I'm quite like disappointed. Just used pinking shears on the seams, which sounds really stupid to me now, but yeah, now I know it's definitely worth finishing the seams properly if you want the garment to last. And French seams they don't take as long as you think they're gonna take. It is sewing the seam twice, but yeah, it's really not very difficult, so it's worth checking out a tutorial for French seams or something if you have a very easily fraying fabric. It's a great finish, and it's really comfortable on the skin as well. So top tip, try French seams. Number 5 is properly prepare your fabric. So again, this is about like spending time and not cutting corners. But I didn't pre-wash fabric for a good year of sewing, at least. It wasn't until I had spent days and days making my boyfriend this lovely linen, sort of stretch linen. It was linen, but it had a bit of a stretch to it. It's so gorgeous. And I made him a shirt from it, proper shirt, the Fairfield button up by Thread Theory. So yeah, proper shirt with cuffs, with a grandad collar like he likes. He doesn't like this sort of a collar. He prefers just the band, which I do normally, but I wanted to try this collar. By the way, new Cali shirt, which I will talk about in another vlog. I didn't pre-wash that fabric, and yeah, it was really lovely. It was really perfect, and when it shrunk, I was gutted. And the funny thing is he didn't tell me. Like, I didn't know. I just said to him, we were going to dinner, there was some sort of occasion, and I was like, why don't you wear the shirt that I made you? And he had to come clean and say, yeah, it's because it shrunk a little bit. It hasn't shrunk loads, like someone else could probably wear it, but could definitely wear it, but it has shrunk too much for him, unfortunately, so that the sleeves are now too short, even though I'd lengthened them. It was heartbreaking. So yeah, pre-washing, you have to do it as long as you're meant to like pre-wash the fabric. Like, don't go throwing your boiled wool in the washing machine. I'm not an expert on fabric types or anything like that, but there are plenty of resources on that, and generally the rule is to pre-wash it how you expect you would be washing the garment once it's made. And then preparing your fabric also goes on to say, like, make sure you iron it before you try and cut something out. Like, I'm ashamed to admit how recently I have made this mistake, or nearly made it. I think just a couple of weeks ago. In fact, it was this shirt and I laid it out ready to cut it. I had already ironed it, but then I got distracted and turns out I couldn't cut it out at that point, so I tried just rolling it up so that I wouldn't cause any creases, and then I unfolded it. It wasn't very creased, so I laid my pattern pieces on it and then started to cut and realised that this was a bad idea, got the iron straight out, and it's very important to make sure that your fabric is laying flat, that it is laying like right. If you're cutting it on the fold, for example, you need to make sure that the grain is all like perfect, perfectly lined up. Even with very, very simple clothes, if you like try to rush that part of things and do it without properly preparing, then you're going to end up with a garment that is a little bit more wonky. It's going to be harder to sew up as well, because notches might not match up, or things will be a little bit more twisted. But that's definitely something that I wish I could tell my younger self to do and to spend time on. It's worth it in the end. So generally, a lot of these points can fall under the banner of take your time. I know that, but essentially that is my main tip. It's easy to just want to rush through things and want to get things done, but sewing is a slow process. So yeah, I wish I could tell my younger self that, but then at the same time I realised that all the mistakes that I made, all of those things that I used to do, the amount of clothes that I made, it's all been part of my development and all been part of me like getting to this point where I'm at now. And yeah, I don't really regret any of it, but if I could go back in time and say one thing, well, I just don't think I would listen to myself anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this anyway. I would love to hear your tips if you have any, or if you have any things like me that you wish you could have told yourself when you were a beginner sewist, what you would say to a new sewist, or if you are a new sewist, let me know down below. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear how you're sewing at the moment and any mistakes that you're making, any challenges you're finding, and hopefully you're really enjoying it, so I would love to hear that as well. But otherwise, that's it from me. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so, and you can come and find me on Instagram, Facebook and Pinterest, as well as my blog at craftwerk.net, where I also have a sign up for a newsletter that I send out at the moment I'm sending out every 2 weeks, but that might increase. But it doesn't just include my vlogs and my new blog posts. There's also some extra little insights and favourites and little tips in there as well. So do sign up if you haven't already. But I hope you have a fab week, and I will see you again next Sunday. Thanks for watching. Bye.